Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I just wanted to talk today and try to provide some inspiration for anybody out there that might have had a rough start in life or might be going through some tough times. I know that not all of us got off to the start in life that we had hoped for, and maybe we didn't have the people around us that we had hoped that we would have. But I mean, all of that is basically neither here nor there. I just want to tell you a little bit about my start in life and how things have gone for me a little bit, to try to provide some inspiration for anybody out there who is using their failings in the past or their failings right now as an excuse. When I was younger, I had a speech impediment. So I remember being in school and I used to have a stutter. I don't know why I had a stutter when I was younger. I don't know if even back then I was a little bit insecure, but my stutter used to be pretty bad. And I think a lot of my stutter, like that was kind of the outside version of it, but I think a lot of that part of the stutter was actually a problem stemming from something internal. I don't know if any of you have watched the movie The Aviator, but the movie The Aviator, when I first watched it, I felt that kind of explained a lot about what was going on inside my head. So in the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio and his character, he basically thinks a thought over and over in his head, and when he gets stuck on these thoughts, they don't seem to go away. That's kind of what was happening inside of me, like internally in my mind. Ideas would just repeat themselves, and I mean, it was really hard to stop the thoughts and to stop the repeating, because your body, I don't know why, but your body, for some reason, when you get into that circumstance mentally, it makes you feel like you have to continue it, otherwise you feel like something isn't complete. It's almost kind of like the feeling, I know some of you have had the feeling when you're saying goodbye to somebody, and saying goodbye is sometimes hard because you get the feeling that even though you're saying goodbye, that you basically forgot to say something, or that there's something should have been said that wasn't said. So I mean, you might have a hard time saying goodbye because something doesn't feel completed. That's kind of the closest analogy I can give to kind of what I was going through internally. So if any of you are having these problems of not being able to say goodbye properly, I mean, the way I kind of got over it was I just decided that if there's something I forgot to say, maybe it was something that didn't need to be said. So just because I walked away, I said goodbye and I left, just because I might have thought about something later that I forgot to say or could have said, doesn't mean that it wasn't a finished goodbye. So I kind of just had to get myself to the point where I just didn't care what I felt internally. I didn't care whether I felt like it was awkward or not. I would just literally say goodbye and walk away. And then, so whatever I felt internally, as I kept doing that, it kept getting less awkward, and less awkward, before finally saying goodbye was easy. Because I mean, if you forgot to say something, you can say it later. If it was something that was really that important, it can be talked about later. So that's kind of what was going on in my head. So even though I had these incomplete thoughts in my head, I just had to get to the point where it didn't matter whether it was incomplete. I just started telling my mind to stop. And I would just start thinking something else and get the thought out of my head. I mean, it was a battle for the longest time, and it really took a long time before when I moved on to the thoughts, because I mean, even when I moved on to new thoughts in the beginning, that thought kept running in the background, and it got to the point where I couldn't even hear that thought repeating in my head unless I became quiet and started paying attention to it. And then once I became quiet enough, I could hear it once again going on in the background. So it's almost like for the first while it didn't get better. It's almost like it just became more quiet, even though it was still going on. But I should have known it was going on, because I had that feeling inside of me still that something wasn't complete. But I mean, as I kept just saying, I'm not going to think about that anymore, and I moved on with the thought, it went away, that feeling. So now I don't feel that anymore. So now if I get a feeling, just like when I say goodbye, if I get a feeling that that thought's incomplete, I either finish that thought right there in the moment and say, Kate, that thought is done, and then I leave it and I start thinking about something else. Or if the thought is complete, I just get rid of it. I can't explain how. I tell my body to stop thinking about it, and now it stops thinking about it. So that's kind of what happened with my stutter. So I think my stutter as a child was kind of the outward representation of kind of what was going on inside of my head, because in the movie Aviator, he repeats a lot of what's going on in his head. So as soon as the thought comes in his head, where the thought feels incomplete and he starts stuttering in his head, he's also repeating it outside of his body. And I think that's kind of what was happening with me internally when I had a stutter. So because of this, because I also used to slur my words a little bit, like it almost kind of felt like when I was younger that my tongue was too big for my mouth. So it's almost like I had to spend more time learning how to talk than most kids had to spend time learning how to talk. So I don't know if some of this has to do with the fact that maybe I was also insecure as a child. I think I was, because I didn't feel like I fit in with all my friends. I didn't feel like I fit in with everybody in my class. I always kind of felt like an outsider. I always felt shy as an introvert, so I was always shy to approach anybody, and I still am. I still fight this all the time. This being shy and not approaching people because you're shy. So even though you want to talk to somebody, you let your shyness take over and you just don't approach them. I mean, I've been battling this my whole life, and I focus on it and I work on it on a daily basis. So I still fight it every day. So because of the fact that I had kind of a speech impediment, and then on top of that I also had a stutter, I got put into a special education class. So the special education class that I was put into, I think it was more to get me from being an introvert. So like we used to play games a lot, and then we focused on pronunciation with words a lot. So I mean, me and the other kids that were in there, I think it was more about getting us to open up and become more extroverted rather than being introverted. Plus it was also helping us learn how to pronounce our words more properly. And eventually I did end up getting rid of my stutter. It took a lot of inward reflection. I was finally able to overcome my talking, and I was able to start talking more clearly with better pronunciation over time. I mean, you feel really excluded when you're a kid and you get taken out of your regular classes to go to a special education class. So I wasn't the only one in this special education class, but to get taken out of your class and put into a special education class, and then to leave your special education class after an hour or two and go back to whatever regular class you happen to be having at that point in time, it kind of excludes you to a certain degree from some of the other kids, because then a lot of the other kids are wondering, well, what are you doing? Like, you know, and then they bug you and tease you about being in the special education class. So I'm sure there's lots of other people that had gone through that besides the people that I went to school with. But these are all kind of the hardships you have to go through to become an adult. And kids these days think it's hard, but I mean, it's been hard for kids for a long time, for multiple generations. And kids are getting excluded a lot less today than what they used to, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you can't, it's just the human condition. You can't get away from feeling excluded. Like I said, even when I was outside playing sports with friends and classmates, I still didn't feel like I belonged. I still felt like an outsider. You know, I'm a true introvert. I am shy because of my introvertedness. So I mean, I don't mind being by myself on a regular basis and just kind of doing my own thing. A lot of times I prefer that. But we're in this world and in this life to grow as individuals. So if I didn't work on growing as an individual by trying to overcome these issues that I had, then it wouldn't be much of a life. I mean, a lot of people have a hard time getting over their problems and to get over the excuses because of the fact that they had something that wasn't working for them. But I mean, anybody can go and work towards their own betterment and stop with the excuses. A lot of it though is because of the fact that I'm an introvert, so I excluded myself intentionally sometimes. So that was my own fault. I didn't have to do that. I probably could have, if I was more extroverted, I probably would have been one of the more popular kids in the school. But being an extrovert is very difficult for me. I've been trying to teach myself to be more extroverted. It's still really, really hard to approach people that you want to talk to, but I mean, I get better at that every single day. So anybody else that is having that problem of not approaching people, I mean, as long as you go into it without any expectations of anything to come to it, and I know that's really hard in some situations, because I know you sometimes want to approach people because you want to have a relationship with them, but as long as you approach it not caring what happens, then it's a lot easier to approach anybody and to just talk. So as long as you don't have expectations of what's going to happen in the conversation and you just kind of let the conversation evolve, it becomes a lot easier to approach people. It's just a matter of getting rid of those expectations on yourself and getting rid of the fact that things are unexpected and you need to let the unexpected be the way it's going to be. You can't control the way other people are going to act, and you shouldn't be afraid and fearful of the way someone is going to react. The only reason you're afraid of the way someone is going to act is because you have expectations of the situation. But with having no expectations of the situation, no matter how the conversation goes, it's not going to matter, and it shouldn't matter to you, and it's not going to affect you. I try to open myself to just talk to people without having an expectation of where the conversation's going to go or what we're going to talk about in the conversation, and to just start the conversation and talk about whatever happens to come up. I mean, I try to approach these conversations and not have expectations of these conversations. And I think that's the best way to approach life in general. So no matter what kind of a start you had as a child, you can overcome any situation that you're in. I know maybe you think that the situation that you're in is a lot worse than the situation that I had when I started out. But when I was going to school, you were actually allowed to get the strap in school. So not only when you were acting in a way the teacher didn't want you to act and you would get the strap from the principal, but we also had these detentions that we used to have to go through. So the detentions that they did for us when I was in school, they no longer allow to have happen in school. They no longer allow principals to give the strap in school either. So for the detention, they used to basically take us, shove us in a small room somewhere off in the middle of the school, somewhere where no one knew where you were, and you would sit in that tiny little room by yourself all day long doing nothing. So sometimes a student would be allowed to bring you some schoolwork, sometimes a teacher would bring you some schoolwork, but for the most part you would just sit there by yourself for the entire day in a tiny little room doing nothing, just being bored out of your mind. And I mean, now they would consider that to be child abuse, just like now they consider kids getting the straps child abuse. And the fact that I had these issues when I was a kid and was in the special ed class, and then because I was kind of the class clown and I was getting all these detentions and getting sent to the principal's office, I kind of had a lot of time to contemplate myself and to contemplate life. So when you're younger, you don't contemplate life like you do when you're older. It's a lot different. But I mean, I used to sit there and ask myself a lot of questions, because really, like, we had no electronics, so you couldn't just sit there and muck around on your phone. Like, all we had was binders and paper and pens and a desk in a tiny little room. So I mean, kids used to graffiti on the walls to pass the time, or graffiti on their books. But I mean, it was boring and it made for a really long, horrible day. And it's kind of weird, me being an introvert and then acting out in class as a class clown. Like, you wouldn't think that that was the case, but I was bored a lot of the times in school. I didn't want to be in school. I found school very boring. So I don't know if it was because of the fact that I was so bored in school, which is why I kind of acted out by being the class clown. That's probably what it has to do with, because I mean, with me being introverted, that's more of an extroverted thing to do. And I mean, we did have class clowns in our class that were extroverts, but for me, I think it was more a coping mechanism with my boredom of school, because I've never really liked school at any grade level. Probably the most that I ever enjoyed school was when I went to post-secondary education for my apprenticeship, and went to post-secondary education to try to get a business degree. I mean, that was probably the most enjoyable time I've ever had in school in both cases. So I just want you to know that no matter what kind of a start you had, or where you started out, or how you started out, that you don't have to let that define your life. You should still work towards overcoming it, even if you're fearful about working towards overcoming it, or you don't even know where to start. I mean, you should just start somewhere, because that's all I did. I didn't know how to fix it because I was young. I just started trying to fix it because I was tired of it. Because I mean, with me being introverted, if I just kept stuttering all the time when I was talking to people, it'd make me feel even more secluded than what it originally did anyways. So then it just kind of makes your introvertedness even worse. So you have to work to overcome it, otherwise things are never going to get better for you. So I want everybody to know that there is hope and that you can be the one that makes the change. There's people out there that can help you with any problem or any situation that you're in. I know a lot of times it seems like life sucks and it seems like you don't want to do it because it's going to be a lot of hard work, but trust me, in the end, all that hard work is going to be worth it. Getting rid of your expectations and just trying until you figure it out is honestly the only way you can go through life. And you have to do it because you have to grow to become better in this life. So I could have let all of this just be an excuse throughout my entire life to not even try and to not even move forward and learn and become a better person. I mean, I've been very negative towards people's excuses because of the fact that I've worked so hard to get over all of my excuses instead of using them as excuses. I am now learning that I can't be so negative about people's excuses, that I need to provide more kind of love and caring towards their problems, because I need to be more sympathetic about what I went through, what it was that I was feeling in the moment. And it did take a lot of work to get through my problems. But any problem that you have, I'm telling you right now, you can get through it. If I can come and do a YouTube video and put my face out on YouTube for the world to see, I mean, the only reason I can do it is because I'm not having any expectations. I have always wanted to teach people the things that I've been learning, because I've always had this epiphany to just teach myself and to learn. And I want to always tell people all the things that I'm learning. So I've been telling family the things that I've been learning. I try to, like, anybody that in my life, like friends or family that I thought might listen, I've been trying to talk to them. But I mean, as you get through life, you realize that not a lot of people, even people in your family, they're not always going to take you super seriously. And it's because they remember you from the time that you were younger, and even though they might not remember a lot of the things that you've went through, they sometimes respect you less than the people that you have only known for the last couple of years. Sometimes you can get people that you've only known for a couple of years to listen to you better than family that you've known your entire life. So I've always felt this lack of not being able to teach anybody and not having anybody listen to me, even though I feel like I got a lot of things to teach, even though I feel like I could help a lot of people. Talking to people on YouTube and trying to teach people on YouTube, I think, is way better and way more easy than what anybody would think it is, because I'm not going into this with any expectations. I'm basically taking my thoughts, taking the things that I know, taking the things that I want to talk to family about, and all I'm doing is making videos and putting it on YouTube. So I have no expectations of things, of whether my videos are ever going to become popular. But I just want to get my voice out there. I just want to get my thoughts out there. I just want to try to help somebody. Like, I probably should have became a teacher when I was younger, and then that might have got rid of some of this anxiety I've been feeling about wanting to teach people but not having anybody that will listen to me. So maybe that's what I should have done when I was younger, is become a teacher. But I never did, because I always found it kind of negative, because I know how I treated my teachers, and a lot of my teachers were trying to do better for the kids in society. Like, they cared, they wanted to help, they wanted to teach. So even though maybe they didn't have the things to teach me that I needed them to teach me, they still were there, and they were still caring, and they still wanted to do something. I know how I treated my teachers, and I created a lot of negativity a lot of times between me and my teachers, and I didn't want that negativity from the kids that I was trying to teach. And with certain kids, it's inevitable that you're going to have interactions like that when you're a teacher, because there's all sorts of personalities with kids that are going to be in your class. You're eventually going to butt heads with somebody, and I found that to be very negative, and I didn't want that negativity in my life, because as you can tell, I've had a lot of negativity in my life, even with just my own inner thoughts and inner feelings, and overcoming that has been a big enough of a chore. So I mean, I haven't wanted to increase the negativity in my life by doing things like being a teacher or being a psychologist and a therapist, you know, trying to help people with all their negative family issues or issues with their friends or issues with them overcoming. I know putting myself out on YouTube, putting my information out on YouTube, there's always going to be trolls that are going to be attacking you. But I mean, that is a different negativity than what you would get as if you were being a therapist, or if you were being a teacher, or if you were being a police officer. Like, that's completely different type of negativity. So this type of negativity I am more willing to deal with now than what I was willing to deal with the other types of negativity when I was younger. So now I'm trying to fulfill my destiny of wanting to teach people the things that I've been learning to help myself. So this is why I have now decided to do these YouTube videos, to put myself out on the line, because I know for myself, when I'm watching videos on YouTube, I myself feel kind of an epiphany with some of the people that go and just put themselves out there. Because I know that it's hard to put yourself out there in real life, let alone out on the internet. So even though those people, when they are putting themselves out there and they're worried about the negative feedback and all that, I myself don't see the things that they're afraid they're going to see by putting themselves out there. So because of that, that means there's going to be people out there that are going to think the same way I do when I see someone putting themselves out on the line, which is not going to be negative. And in fact, it's just going to inspire them more to put themselves more out on the line. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to want to teach people and show people a better way, help people work through the things that they consider to be negative in their lives, help people work through the problems that they have in their life. And even though I don't really want to be on the stage and I don't want to be the example, I think I can be the example, and I think I can show people that there is a better way than just giving up, or a better way than not putting in the work. Because trust me, it's worth putting in the work. It is hard to go through life with regrets. It is hard to go through life fearing everything all the time. And that is not a way to live. That is not a way you want to live. It is not a way that I wanted to live. That's why I've been putting in the energy to work through it. That's why I want to help people so they can put in the energy so that they can work through their problems themselves. I hope you've appreciated this video. I hope you've been able to learn something from this video. And I hope that you're willing to put in the work to make things better for yourself.